A man's arrogance destroys everything he holds dear, but the daughter he cast aside will rise to teach him the true cost of pride. Stay with us to witness a tale of betrayal, karma, and a family's reckoning. Watch. Jonah was a man of great status. He had built his wealth from the ground up, starting with a small shop in the city of Edoria. Through hard work, intelligence, and determination, he grew his business into a massive empire. People respected him. His name commanded authority, and his opinions were valued in the city. But behind his success was a simple and humble woman, Amy. Amy had been with Jonah from the beginning. She stood by him when he had nothing, encouraging him, cooking his meals, and praying for his success. She never demanded riches, never complained, and never made him feel less of a man. She was the ideal wife, loving, loyal, and patient. But there was one problem. Amy could not conceive. At first, Jonah did not care. "We have each other," he said to her, "and that is enough." But as years passed, the pressure started. His family, friends, and the society around him began to whisper behind his back. "Where are Jonah's children?" they asked. "Who will inherit his wealth?" People mocked him, saying, "A rich man without children is like a tree without roots." And slowly, Jonah began to feel ashamed. Amy heard the whispers. She felt the stares whenever she walked through the market. Women looked at her with pity, while others laughed at her behind her back. She knew her husband was under pressure, and that pressure weighed on her heart. But what could she do? She tried everything. She went from one doctor to another. She drank herbs that old women claimed could make her fertile. She fasted and prayed for weeks, hoping for a miracle. But nothing happened. Then, one fateful year, after many years of waiting, a miracle happened. Amy found out she was pregnant, and her joy was beyond words. She told Jonah, and for the first time in years, he held her and wept with happiness. "I knew God would answer us," he said. 9 months later, Amy gave birth to a baby girl, and they named her Mary. Jonah was happy, but deep down, he knew the pressure was not over. Mary's birth was celebrated across Edoria. Jonah held a lavish party, inviting businessmen, elders, and friends to share in his joy. But as the celebration went on, he began to notice something. People were not truly happy. Some men congratulated him, but their eyes were filled with pity. Others whispered, "A girl? That is all?" Jonah's joy slowly turned into doubts. Later that night, his mother came to him and said, "My son, I am happy for you, but you need a son. A man's first child should not be a girl." Jonah said nothing, but in his heart, he knew she was right. Years passed, and Jonah tried to have another child with Amy, but nothing happened. He became restless. His family kept pressuring him. At first, he resisted. He told them, "Amy is my wife. I love her." But the pressure grew stronger. His uncles, elders, and friends told him, "Jonah, you are a great man. You cannot have only one child. You need more children, especially sons." The more he heard this, the more it took roots in his heart. And finally, he made a decision. He would take a second wife. When Jonah's family heard his decision, they were overjoyed. They began searching for a suitable second wife, and it did not take long before they found Zoba. Zoba was young, beautiful, and full of confidence. Her skin glowed, her eyes sparkled, and her charm could make any man's heart melt. Unlike Amy, Zoba was not humble. She was bold, outspoken, and full of ambition. When Jonah's mother saw her, she said, "This is the woman who will give my son many children." Jonah met Zoba, and like every other man, he was captivated by her beauty. She was everything Amy was not: young, energetic, and fearless. He made his decision. He would marry her. When he told Amy, she felt her world collapse. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not fight back. She simply said, "If this is what will make you happy, my husband, then do it." Jonah felt guilty, but he had made up his mind. And so, Zoba became the second wife of Jonah. The night before Zoba's wedding, her mother called her aside. She whispered, "When you enter that house, do not be foolish. Shine your eyes, my daughter. That first wife, Amy, she's your enemy. She will try to act innocent, but do not be deceived. Make her life miserable, and her daughter, be careful. Her mother's bad luck may rub off on her." Zoba listened, and she obeyed. From the first day Zoba entered the house, everything changed. At first, she acted sweet. She greeted Amy politely. She smiled at Mary. She acted like a respectful woman. But as time passed, her true colors began to show. She became rude. She ignored Amy. She took the best rooms, the best clothes, and made sure Jonah spent all his time with her. Amy, always humble, tried to make peace, but Zoba was not interested in peace. One day, she looked Amy in the eyes and said, "You are weak. You have only one child, and she's not even beautiful." Amy said nothing, but her heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Zoba settled into the house like a queen. From the very first week, she made it clear that she was not a guest. She was here to rule. At first, she acted sweet in front of Jonah, smiling at Amy, pretending to respect her. But once Jonah left for work, her behavior changed instantly. She started ignoring Amy completely. If Amy spoke to her, she acted like she did not hear. If Amy walked past her, she would roll her eyes or click her tongue in annoyance. But it was not just Amy she ignored. She started targeting Mary too. At first, it was just small things, snatching away the best fruits from Mary's plate, refusing to sit near her, or muttering insults under her breath. But as time passed, her actions became worse. One day, Amy was in the kitchen cooking Jonah's favorite meal. She had spent hours making sure everything was perfect. The aroma of the food filled the house, making everyone hungry. Jonah was supposed to return from work soon, and Amy, as usual, wanted to welcome him with a home-cooked meal. But just as she was setting the table, Zoba walked in. She looked at the food with disgust and said loudly, "This food looks so terrible. Jonah deserves better than this." But before Amy could say a word, Zoba grabbed a tray of food and threw it on the floor. The plate shattered. The food spilled everywhere. Amy gasped. Tears filled her eyes. Mary, who had been standing near the door, covered her mouth in shock. Zoba said, "Oops, my hand slipped." Amy wanted to shout. She wanted to fight back. But she knew that if she did, Jonah would only see her as the problem. So she did the only thing she could. She knelt down and silently cleaned the mess while Zoba laughed and walked away. Mary ran to help her mother. "Mama, why do you let her treat you like this?" Mary whispered, her eyes filled with anger. Amy forced a sad smile and said, "Because, my child, not every battle is fought with words. Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer." Mary did not understand, but she would soon learn the painful truth. The events that followed in Jonah's household would shake the very foundations of his once glorious family. Zoba, who had ruled with pride and arrogance, was about to face the consequences of all her actions. Amy, the woman who had suffered in silence, was about to witness the full power of patience and destiny. For years, Zoba had taken over Jonah's heart, home, and happiness. She had done everything in her power to push Amy aside, to humiliate Mary, and to raise her children above anyone else. She had poisoned Jonah's mind against his first wife, making him see Amy as nothing but a burden. But now the tide was turning. Zoba had given Jonah 4 children, Zara and Zora, the twin girls, who grew up vain and selfish, and Nnanna and Nnamdi, the twin boys, who had been raised without discipline. Zoba had believed that her children would inherit everything, that Jonah would never see through her manipulation. But time, as it always does, had its way of revealing the truth. Nana and Nnamdi had become infamous in Edoria. Their crimes were no longer small: stealing from local traders, bullying younger boys, disrespecting elders. They had started gambling and spending recklessly, always confident that their father's wealth would protect them. But one fateful night, they went too far. They stole from a powerful chief's household, taking gold, jewelry, and important documents. This time, there was no escape. They were caught, dragged before the city elders, and sentenced to life in prison. Jonah, now an old man, stood before the council begging for mercy. He offered land, money, and everything he had just to get them released. But the elders refused. "Your sons have disgraced this city for too long," they said. This time, the law must take its full course. Jonah fell to his knees, feeling the weight of years of bad decision crashing down on him. He had ignored Amy's warnings, thinking he was building a strong family. But now he saw the truth. He had built nothing but destruction. Zoba was inconsolable. She screamed, she wailed, she clung to Jonah, begging him to do something. But for the first time in their marriage, Jonah had no words, because deep down he knew that this was all her doing. She had raised the boys without discipline. She had encouraged their bad behavior. She had made them believe they were untouchable, and now they were lost forever. Meanwhile, Zara and Zora's life had not turned out as perfectly as Zoba had planned. Zora had married a rich man, but she was miserable in her marriage. She had everything: wealth, beauty, and status, but no love. Her husband barely spoke to her, and when he did, it was with coldness. Zara had faced even worse troubles. She had struggled to conceive, and her mother-in-law had threatened to throw her out. In her desperation, she had swallowed her pride and begged Mary for prayers. Mary, despite everything, had forgiven her sister and prayed for her. And a year later, Zora had given birth to a bouncing baby boy. But even with this joy, she knew that her life was empty. She saw how Zoba had raised them to be proud, vain, and selfish. She had grown up looking down on her elder sister, mocking Mary for being different. Now, Mary was the most honored among them all. While Zara and Zora struggled in their marriages, Mary was living in peace, loved and cherished by her husband. Her wedding had been the grandest Edoria had ever seen. People who had once mocked her had now gathered in her honor. Her father Jonah had watched from the sidelines, tears rolling down his face. He had spent years ignoring his first daughter. He had believed Zoba when she said that Mary was unlucky. But now, he saw the truth. Mary was the most blessed of them all. Jonah's biggest regret was that he had not realized this sooner. He had abandoned his daughter, who truly loved him, the daughter who had a pure heart. And now, he could only watch her from afar. Mary had left the house she grew up in, the house where she had known nothing but pain. She had found happiness and she had moved on. Amy too had finally found peace. She no longer worried about Zoba's insult or Jonah's neglect. She no longer felt invincible. She had endured pain, but in the end, she had won without fighting. She had watched as Zoba's world crumbled around her. She had watched as the woman who had once laughed at her was now being mocked by the same people who had once praised her. Zoba, the proud woman, had become the disgrace in Edoria. People whispered she destroyed Jonah's family. They said she raised criminals. Some even called her the cursed woman. She no longer walked freely in the market without people pointing at her. The final blow came when Jonah's family elders made a decision. Zoba must leave this house. Jonah was too weak with regret to fight back. He simply nodded. And so, one early morning, Zoba was sent away. She, who was once the queen of the household, was now homeless. She, who had once looked down on Amy, now had no place to go. And the most painful part, nobody cared. Years later, Jonah lived to see the full consequences of his choices. He saw how Amy's patience had been rewarded. He saw how Zoba's pride had destroyed her. He saw how Mary, the daughter he once neglected, had become the most successful of all his children. One day, as an old man, he sat by himself and whispered, "If only I had chosen wisely, but regret cannot change the past." He had lost his family, his respect, and his happiness. And the saddest part, it was all his fault. This is a story of patience, betrayal, karma, and destiny. Amy, the neglected wife, became the true winner. Mary, the mocked child, became the most successful of them all. Zoba, the proud woman, ended in disgrace. Jonah, the man who had made the wrong choices, lived with painful regrets. In the end, life gave everyone what they deserved. Now, the moral lesson from this story: pride leads to destruction, but patience leads to victory. What you do to others will always come back to you. Like they say, karma is real. A wise woman builds her home, but a foolish one destroys it. Beauty fades, but character lasts forever. Parents who fail to discipline their children will one day regret it. God fights battle for those who wait on Him. Love your children equally. You will never know who will become great. Never abandon the people who stood by you when you had nothing. And so, the tale of Jonah, Amy, Zoba, and Mary came to an end. But their lessons will live on, forever remembered in the city of Eldoria. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. I would love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Stay awesome. Bye!